Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vulnerability Time podcast. I am your host, published author, and PhD candidate, Josias Abriel. Before we get started, folks, just a couple quick announcements. One, the show is now accepting donations. We need to get a new laptop to continue the show. So I have a Cash App in the episode description below. You just click on the link tree and you can donate. Anything helps. There's this used laptop that I was looking at, and it's about 600 something dollars. So that I will be needing to get that to. I found like the best and cheapest used laptop to be able to record the show, because the current laptop, she's dying on us, folks, and the software and the updates, it's starting to do its thing again. So if you would like to donate to help the show out, please do so. Anything helps. Also, if you are listening on YouTube, give this a like. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give this a 5-star rating. It will help the algorithm. I do need 10 more 5 stars to continue the show. So if you could please do that, I would truly appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Alrighty, everyone. Today we have with us a brand new special guest to the show. Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Josias. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Oh, I have a question. Did you just get your hair cut?
Wow, very amazing that you noticed. I got it cut a bit ago, but it was after I talked to you before. So,
Gotcha.
yep.
It's such a cute bob.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Growing up, the girls and the gays were like really, really close. So even the smallest like haircuts, I notice.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, and so before we get into our topics, Mary, tell us a little bit about you. What do you do? Do you have your own podcast, any hobbies, things of that nature, whatever you want to share with us. Let's get
Sure.
to know you a little
Okay.
bit.
So I'm going to give you the abridged version because I am not young. So I retired about 4 years ago after a career where I started as a high school counselor. I did that for about 20 years. And then I moved to a community college and I did several positions administratively, but I was also a therapist for students. And then I went to the second largest Penn State campus, and I worked there for about 8 years. And there were some changes at one point that I didn't feel like I could fully kind of express my strengths.
Right.
So I chose to do a little early retirement, and since then, I've worked through my list of what I wanted to do. So I started a podcast called No Shrinking Violets for Women. And we talk about all kinds of things that have to do with taking up space. I have, as you can probably relate, amazing guests, and I learn every time I talk to somebody. And I do mini episodes Monday. I also wanted to write a book. I am a nature girl. And so along the way, in my life, I started to recognize how much we, first of all, don't recognize that we're nature. We think that we have this big, powerful brain, so we just think our way out of things. But usually, our brain either keeps us stuck or gets us into
Mm,
trouble. So,
mm,
I was a master gardener for 15 years, which is a volunteer program where you're trained about on horticulture. And so I started to see all these similarities. And one of the things that struck me the most was that when we think about or work with a plant, like say we have a house plant, and if it's struggling, we start to think about what does it need? Does it need more water? Does it have too much
mhm,
water? Does it need some sun? And so we are very accepting of plants. There are weird plants in the world that are fascinating and we love that. But when it comes to people, if we ourselves are struggling, typically the first thought is, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just get
right.
through this? We don't look at
Mm,
maybe we need something different. And
right.
also, if there's somebody, another human that's a little different than what society says they should be, we're very quick to judge. So we have kind of these two ways of being. And so I started to marry those two and started to bring it into my therapy because I'm a licensed therapist. And I decided I was going to write a book. So I just published my book in May, and it's called Nature Knows, Grow and Thrive Through the Wisdom of Plants. So that's kind of where I am in a nutshell.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that was so perfectly said. You know, even yesterday, but recently I've been hugging more and more trees.
I love that.
Yeah, I love because they're alive, and who told us that they are less equal than us? Because if the world, I love saying the statistic, if the world lost 3 billion humans, the world would survive and thrive. If the world lost 3 billion trees, oh, we would die. So,
Right, they literally give us our oxygen, and I think not
exactly.
everybody knows that. And also, there's
Yeah.
so much energy in trees.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a great way to ground yourself, and they
Yeah.
are a whole community. I mean, I could
They
talk
really
about that
are.
for an
They
hour.
even can communicate with each
Oh,
other through roots and stuff.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. Yep.
So I think that's what's so beautiful. But yeah, I just had to question, who told us that they were less than. And
Mhm.
um, being in my field of sociology, I had, for those who don't know what sociology is, it is the study of society and the systems that affect society. And when I think of systems, when I automatically think of capitalism, and we, had to learn and go about that. And it seems to be a very financial strategic reason why we are taught that
Mhm.
plants are less than, because throughout many cultures, throughout the history of humanity, plants were taught as equal, not less than.
Mhm.
And so, but let me get off my soapbox. Yes, okay. So speaking of plants, so one of our topics, Mary, is essential nature.
Yes.
What does that mean? Why that topic? Share all of it with us.
Okay. So I I think I came up with that. I mean, you're going to find a lot of people talk about true nature, authentic nature. I think our
Yeah.
essential nature. So that's really the basis of what I write about in my book, and it is really who are we at our core. And so most of that is just DNA. And so when I say that, I'm not talking about let's look at really our genetics specifically, but when we were kids, we would typically understand what we gravitated toward: a favorite color, a favorite food, a person that made us feel safe, activities that we liked. And as we get older, we have these societal pressures on us to be a certain way. Or, and this is kind of what I talked about before, when how we judge people, sometimes it's very rigid. It's we pink is for girls and blue is for boys, and we have all of these things, ways we're
Yeah.
supposed to be. And so I work a lot with women, so it's stay small, smile, be nice, don't
Mm.
be the B word, like all of those things.
Yeah.
And so what I try to do with essential nature is help people realize or recognize or remember, who were you when you were a kid before you got these messages that, oh, you like to play the violin, oh, that's weird, oh, you are a girl but you want to play football, girls don't do that. It's we have these very,
Mhm.
and they're usually gender based.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think we start to get these messages, and then we think we're not okay, so we have to change. But our essential nature is really, who are you? And it's impacted, it's that nature nurture. So we're impacted by how did we grow up? And
Mm.
so we learn to cope certain ways, which aren't always healthy, but they're just part of who we are.
Right.
So if we
Right.
look at that and we compare it to how plants live, so a rose can't be a cactus can't be a fern. They all need specific things. Nature
Mhm.
doesn't try to be like each other. They don't look at social media and like, oh wow, look at that person. They're so successful. Maybe I need to use that face cream, or I need to
Mm.
do that, wear that outfit, or, and a lot of it is surface stuff. But I
Right,
think
right.
if we can get back to remembering who we were, then we can start to figure out what in our environment is not working for us.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Because you will find that, you know, we in nature, oh yeah, there's a lot we can learn from nature. Um, aren't we all a part of nature anyways?
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, there's like a bug. Okay. Yes, a little bit.
See, that's
Um,
nature. It's trying to say, yeah, here I am.
yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. Um, so how has, you know, coming back to nature, when in your life did you start, is there any circumstances where you can give us an example through your own life, of how nature became essential and how you needed nature?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. So it started very early. So I was the fourth of five children, and I had three older brothers. And one of my brothers was an addict.
Mm,
And what went along with that addiction was a lot of anger, a lot of violence. And
mm,
I was 8 years younger than him. I was typically the target of that. And as a Gen X kid, I'm going to do a little stereotyping here of parental styles. My parents were pretty hands off. They obviously loved me, but in a very sort of caretaking way. My mom
mm,
was not a hugger. My mom came from abuse herself.
mm,
So I was a little bit on my own, and we had a patch of woods that was walking distance from our house. I was in a rural
yeah.
area. And so I just naturally went there. And that's what made me sort of also think about this idea of essential nature. Nobody told me go to the woods. I was a reader and I was a nature girl. And so I would just go there, and it was so calming, and people think nature is quiet. Well, it's quieter than where I live now in the city, but there's bird song, there's the
Yeah.
wind, there's all the sounds that are really part of our genetics forever.
Mm,
We at some point centuries and centuries ago we lived very close to the land.
mm,
And so that has always been a source of strength. Looking at trees, as you said, like
mm,
touching the bark of trees, just
mm,
smelling all the scents. And so when we think of the idea of grounding, which I love as a therapist, grounding is being in the present. Because if you can be in the present, you can't worry about what you said yesterday to somebody on one of your friends. You can't
mm.
worry about what's coming up in the future. If you're in the present, you're in your five senses. And there's nowhere that's really better to do that than in nature. So that was just totally something that I did instinctually. And so now I realize, hey, this is what I need to do periodically. It's like, you go there, you sort of, and it can be a bench in a park. It doesn't have to be like immersing yourself. And you just reconnect. You look at the sky, you listen to the wind. And so when I was a kid, that really was something that helped me get through some kind of difficult times.
Yeah. Would you say that um, for many, nature can be life-saving?
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
for sure.
And it seems as though, it was a form of, would you say, like a form of coping, a form of protection, a form of comfort.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's what's beautiful about nature because the plants, the trees, they love us unconditionally.
Hmm.
And, they're not these inanimate objects like,
Right.
we were taught, right? And so I'm like, I talk to trees, hug trees, and I can cry around a tree. And I
Hmm.
mean, I cry in general around anyone, but trees, like they're alive. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're alive. Like, if someone when I was younger just came and told me they are alive,
Hmm.
like stretched it like that. Cause I'm like, oh, well, sure they're alive because they're green, but it's
Yeah.
just like, no, 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 they are alive.
Hmm.
These are incarnates. These are also souls. Like they are alive. something that I look at is how Native Americans viewed nature. Because folks have told me that how I view nature is in a very indigenous way. Because I view nature, and this I know some people may disagree with this, but I view nature as just as equally important as humans. Like how we treat like say, oh, humans are more important than anything on this earth. I disagree with that, and I say nature as well is just as extremely equally important.
Hmm.
And so that's how I go. That's how I treat nature,
Yeah.
right? And that's just the belief that I, not only came up with because of spiritual reasons, but also just, factual reasons,
Hmm.
because we actually used to view nature as equal. So what's the norm is not really the norm, it's just the now. And now is like, oh yeah, there's this hierarchy, but that wasn't always the case.
No, and I have read a lot of Native American literature, especially when I was younger, and they had to understand nature because they lived as
Yeah,
part of it, really. And so, what has happened with us is we've been distanced from it. The more technology we have, the more we're afraid of it, or we
mhm.
we we
Or
think
don't understand it.
don't understand it.
Yeah,
And so Native Americans had to understand the seasons.
yeah,
They thanked the plants, they thanked the
mhm,
animals that they ate. And so
yeah,
now we think, I just go to the grocery store and I get carrots. Well, yeah, but they had to grow. There's nutrients in the soil. And so
yeah,
that's another thing that the Native Americans appreciated the soil. They didn't spray
yeah,
chemicals on it like we do now. So
mhm,
we've really moved out of understanding how everything works. We need
yeah,
pollinators or we're not going to have fruit. We're not going to have
right.
vegetables. And you mentioned, if a certain number of trees die, well, if bees died, if we didn't have bees anymore,
Yeah,
we're done. We are done.
yeah, hmm,
So there's a cadence to nature. There's the pollination, and all
yeah,
of those things are a cycle. And so when we interfere and we try to,
mm,
do what we think is best, like monocropping or spraying our crops, we're ruining the soil, literally
yeah,
ruining the soil. So there's so many things we've done to kind of reverse the beauty of nature, but we totally need it and we're
yeah,
totally part of it, even if we don't recognize it.
yeah, exactly. And the cool thing also is that Earth has a heartbeat. If folks know that, but Earth literally has a heartbeat. Literally, you don't believe me? Look it up. Like, Earth has a heartbeat, and like, I mean, Earth is literally alive.
Mhm.
Um, it's a literally a living entity. But anyway, so I thought that was pretty really cool, really interesting to share. And so the reason why I'm sharing this is because we're often taught, it's very common that, we're taught this kind of like disconnection between us and nature.
Mhm.
And so we're not taught in school, oh, Earth has a heartbeat. Oh, humanity used to be so close with nature. We were one with it. Oh, this is what things nature has taught us. We're not taught that at all. And so I'll speak for myself. So, up until my near-death experience, I would, my life would reflect that disconnection. I could walk past a tree and not even notice or realize that I walked past a tree. I wouldn't even recognize it. I'm just like, oh, it's just a plant,
Mhm.
not realizing or recognizing the importance and the beauty and the necessity of that plant and how, you know, it helps keep us alive, and I don't want it to get to a point in society where folks will have to start seeing and feeling the immediate effects of being disconnected from nature for us to finally get it.
Yeah.
You know, do I think it's gonna, mm, I think that eventually we're gonna return to the garden. the garden meaning like, nature. I think we're going to return to that, and there's spiritual reasons why I think that. But I just wish that we were taught differently growing up. I wish that I was taught differently
Hmm.
growing up. How about that?
Yeah.
I do wish that I was taught differently growing up. For example, you mentioned bees. Like, it took me learning that statistic of like how important bees are, and if they just, because I used to kill bees, right?
Hmm.
As a kid, I used to. Oh, they have stingers. That means something bad. Not really making that connection. Like, they're just trying to live as well. And this is the beauty that they do that affects us greatly. And so once I learned the statistic, or it wasn't a statistic, it was the fact of like if all bees disappeared, Earth would not last 2 years. We would not last 2 years or something. It said something like that. And so now I look at bees and I thank them. I wave at them. I get out of their way,
Hmm.
if, I get out of their way if need be. If I don't know if I'm hearing a lot of buzzing or if they're getting like close to me consistently, I just assume that means okay. I'll get out your way. You're trying to survive. You're doing your job, so let me get out your way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but did you know that Earth has a heartbeat? Did you know that?
I
I just
didn't
learned
know
that like a
that,
year ago.
Josias. No.
Yeah. I learned. Oh my God! Thank you for saying my name correctly. Because a lot of times, and I don't fault people for it. It's just something funny that I observe. A lot of people say Josias and not Josias.
Oh.
Just put an A in there.
Hmm.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, Earth has a heartbeat. Folks, if you're interested in that, look into like the shaman residence or something, or just type in Earth heartbeat. Earth has a heartbeat. And
Did you know plants make music? If you
I
hook plants up
think
to
I
the right
heard.
kind of electrical stuff, you can hear them singing.
I heard something like that. I didn't know if it was all plants, but I heard about it. They said this one plant, um, it has a certain frequency that certain animals can hear, but humans can't hear it. But other plants can hear it. So is it all plants? They make
I
noise,
don't know if it's all plants. I want to
but it's a
believe it
lot of
is.
them.
Let's believe it is.
Right, right. Yeah, I'll look into that later, but I'm assuming that it's a lot of plants
Hmm.
can make that because they just highlighted this one plant just because rats can hear its frequency.
Wow.
Yes, but and that's really beautiful because scientifically speaking, um humans can only hear to a certain amount of frequency and we can only see a certain amount on the light spectrum. So literally science has told us that literally majority of our world is invisible to us.
Hmm.
So that's when like when kids see something, when animals see something, or when they're saying, oh, this plant is making noise. Yeah, it is. Just because we can't experience it doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yep.
So I think that that's really really eye-opening and really cool.
Yeah.
So what if when I hug a tree, what if it's communicating back to me? I just can't hear it.
Oh, people totally believe that for sure. Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And I know there are some Native American traditions where they have, talked and wrote about um, communication with trees.
Hmm.
Um, I'm a big believer in vibration and frequency and energy just because we're literally all made of energy as well. We do believe in vibrations. We may believe in it in different ways, but we believe in vibrations, like when I clap my hands, someone will hear it. We believe in vibrations. So humans frequencies weren't always this low, and so it makes sense that back then we could easily communicate with plants.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and so our next topic is live like a plant, grow and thrive like plants.
Hmm.
Why that topic? Well, share with us on what that even means.
Okay. So if we look at how plants grow, they're going to do everything to survive. Um, but they also know how to thrive. And so if we look at some of their
Mm.
examples, I think we can apply it to our lives in a way that makes it less prescriptive. I don't want to be like a how-to person, but
Mm.
for example, let's talk about light and shade. I think we all know a plant needs a certain amount of light. So if you are a fern typically grows in shade. And so I compare light and shade to like introversion and extroversion. So if we are somebody that just loves the party, we get the
Mm.
energy from everybody else, we're an extrovert. If we recharge by being in quiet, being in solitude, we need time away from things, more of an introvert, but we're on a spectrum. Everything in the world really is a spectrum. It's not one or the other.
Right.
So if we can think
That's
about,
true.
we need a certain thing, that's okay. So we've been, I think in our society often too, been told that it's weird to be an introvert. You're weird, you're awkward. Not true. And so if we look at a fern who needs that coolness, that separation, that's kind of what I think of
Mm.
as introversion, that's just what it needs. Or another example, if I have a plant and it's attacked by a pest, it's going to set a boundary. We don't see it. And this is kind of what you were talking about. We can't see them doing this, but they send out what's called volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and it basically can make the leaves less appetizing to them. But the other cool thing is it warns the other plants. So they send out these VOCs and it's telling the community there's a danger here. And so I compare that to boundaries because I think we know when there's somebody in our stratosphere, somebody in our ecosystem that is not healthy for us, but we tend to know what we should do, but then we
Mhm.
worry, are they going to get mad at me if I say, I need some time here, or that's not working for me? But plants
Yeah.
don't apologize, they just do it. And so there's
Yeah.
so many ways
Mm.
we can look at how plants grow and use those examples to give ourselves permission to just do what our essential nature really indicates we should do.
Yeah. That exactly. And another thing that I learned the other day is more about matriarchy and how there's no hierarchy. Everyone was, including nature, we were all one as well.
Hmm.
So I think that's really beautiful because what you said, us being able, so it just reminded me of that. But um, us being able to take notes from nature, so many notes, and apply that to our lives. One, that's very validating. And two, it just helps bring understanding. It's just like, what if that's just, survival?
Hmm.
So like you said, they don't apologize for it. They're
Right.
just surviving. And
Mhm.
seems to be like an understood thing, right? Wow. So can you give us another example of how you had to, or a couple examples how you had to like live like a plant?
Absolutely. So the other thing that I think we struggle with is resting. We're in this productivity culture.
Mm.
So, the hustle kind of thing that you keep
Yeah.
going, you keep going. And so
So,
we think, oh, I can just sleep whenever. I don't need to get sleep. I don't need to get rest. And we tend to push
mhm,
through the times when our body is saying, yo, like we need to slow down. So if we think
mhm,
about, let's think about plants. Most people know what a tulip is. So a tulip blooms in spring, maybe 2 weeks. We don't see it again till the next spring. It has that bulb underground. So it's fortifying itself, it's resting. We're not thinking, my God, the tulip is so lazy. Why can it just not bloom the whole spring?
mm,
Because that is not how it goes. And so if you think about somebody maybe with an autoimmune disease and they might need to sleep 10 hours a night, 12 hours a night, well, our society can say, well, that's lazy. Or in the corporate world, that's not going to work because you're not showing up and producing. But if we look at how plants do it,
right.
every single plant rests at some point. If we think
Mm,
about the leaves falling off of the trees,
yeah.
certain areas, that's the tree resting. We're not saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it doesn't just keep its leaves."
Yeah.
We think that's kind of cool. Like we will drive miles sometimes in the eastern United States to look at those beautiful leaves in the fall. So we accept it from plants that this is the way. And I even talk about blooms as gifts. So I have plants that will bloom all summer.
Yeah.
And again, I'll have a plant that will only bloom in the spring. And wildflowers, spring ephemerals, they're in the spring. And again, people will drive from miles to hike the trails where these little flowers are. They go away by usually June 1st. We're not saying, I can't believe they're not still growing and blooming. That is how they bring their gifts into the world. So I talk to people about what are your gifts and how do you need to bring that into the world. So one person has maybe one song that is a top, the top song in the world, and then or a movie that does well. The first thing we say is there a sequel? When are you going to do this
Yeah.
again? We don't just say
Mm,
it's fine to have one thing that you've done. So this idea of productivity I think about as blooming, and you can't have
yeah.
blooming unless you have pollinators. So again, that brings in the idea of community. So I just sort of weave all of these things through the book with the different examples, and how then with stories from my clients, stories from my life,
Hmm.
illustrations, just giving people examples of like, hey, it's okay to figure out, are you a dandelion? Are you a rose? Are you a cactus?
Yeah.
And how does that then apply to what you need?
Yes. Oh, and something really cool as well to kind of piggyback off what you said about the rest is if we look at like a brain and a body, more specifically their nervous system, that doesn't rest versus a brain and a nervous system that does take rest,
Hmm.
we will notice some differences.
Hmm.
We will notice one has long-term unhealthy effects, that um, manifest throughout the whole body and into their external world as well. We can be, some folks can, one of those ways it's like folks can be more reactive
Hmm.
on something, more grumpy, right?
Yes.
Yes. But there's also some very, very dangerous things that happen because of, lack of rest. Long term, some folks they're at a higher likelihood for cancer
Yeah.
because of that. Yeah. So it's things things of that nature. So that's why I'm like, the capitalist systems that tell us one, be individual, individualize everything, and then two, work, 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 and don't stop.
Yeah.
You know, nature doesn't say that, the body doesn't say that. The only things that's telling us that is the capitalist system. Folks, I'm a sociologist. So I when I first started the PhD program, I almost quit because I was so disgusted with the new knowledge that I was learning, and seeing the history of a lot of things and how what we're being taught now is it's not good for anyone. It's not good for the earth. It's only good for a system, and it frustrates me.
Hmm.
It really does frustrate me. I'm just speechless, honestly, this whole episode. I'm very speechless at what you're saying. I'm just taking it in, and I think it's so freaking beautiful, and I think it's such a reminder. And there's a couple things that you said that I really needed to hear and did not realize that I needed to hear it. And this has just been what things that you said have been such a great reminder. Um, Such a great reminder. I'm on the brink of tears. Crying is healthy, folks. Crying is healthy. I just don't want to ugly cry on camera. I can cry, I just don't want to ugly cry. That's a shame area that I'm gonna working through actually. But so for those of us who, who this information is new to, right? Because it's like we've both said, this is not something that was taught, you know,
Hmm.
to us. What is some advice? And it's something, well, let me ask a more specific question. Um, So you said you work with women a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, especially in today's age, because it used to not be like this. There used to be, fun fact, folks, there patriarchy didn't always exist. Okay, let me just say that that didn't always exist. But it exists now, and we see, it established and created hierarchies, right? And so I feel like in today, especially in today's world, it is important to men. Don't worry, I'm not going to forget about you in this episode or intersex individuals. Um, but it is important, at least in my opinion, it is very important that women, it's taught, hey, take up space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can you give us any advice on that, and can you connect it somehow with nature?
Sure. So we'll go back quickly to Native American. A lot of Native American cultures were actually matriarchal. There was a lot of
Yes.
respect given to women. Women also worked very well together. They were
Mhm.
often the center of the community. And so let me link it
Exactly.
quickly to bees again. If you
Mhm.
understand honeybees, the female honeybees are the bomb. Like they are the ones that run the show. They invite the drones in at a certain point to mate. Those are the male bees. Kick them out. They usually go die somewhere. And then the women take care of the larva and create the new bees, create the honey that we love.
Mhm.
So all that to say, if we think about, you mentioned capitalism, if we actually educate ourselves, why are we in a patriarchal society? Why do we have this idea that we shouldn't rest, that we need to get up and be at work by a certain time, that we work an 8-hour day? That all is connected to capitalism. And so at one point,
Yeah, it is.
when we won't get too political, but when the white man came over, they decided Native Americans, that's too slow. That life doesn't work for us. They did a lot of things like actually seed smallpox onto blankets that they gave to the Native Americans, which ended up decimating the
Oh.
culture.
Mm.
So there are a lot of things that were done intentionally to build this society, and there's a lot of religious stuff that's connected to that too, the rules of
Mhm.
religion. And so
Mm.
what that's really done is it's put women in positions where we often shrink, and we also feel like other women are our competitors. And that's
Mm.
not how
Mm.
we came about.
Mm.
Centuries ago, we worked together to help the community and raise the children, and whatever the food sources were. So we've changed a lot, and I think we don't remember that. I think maybe we remember it somewhere in our bodies, but we don't know that. And
Right.
so again, I often say, let's look at nature. Let's look at how the honeybees do things, that there are
Yes.
these ways of being. And Susan Simard wrote a book called Finding the Mother Tree. And what that means, she found this tree that's been there, that's been the centuries of this tree that has put out its roots. And like you said, those roots communicate with each other in ways. And so we think we can go and clear cut a forest and plant whatever we want. It's not going to thrive. And so let's not think about what do we need to make money. Let's plan something so we can have our paper and our toilet paper. That's not taking care of the earth. And so if we can live with the earth and look at how a female plant creates the fruit, we need the male to pollinate for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are even actually plants that can change their sex, that can
Yeah.
male and female can be self-pollinating. So if we look at nature, all of these things are just the beautiful part of how things go. But that's another thing we judge, this idea
Yeah.
of sex and gender. And so there's so many things that I think if we
Yeah.
just can step back and say, maybe the way that the world is right now, especially if we sense it, if we sense that we're shrinking or we
Yeah.
can't be who we really feel like we need to be, our essential nature, that's a
Mhm.
clue. And so it's just figuring out, how can I reconnect with that? And
Yeah.
I just think nature is a great guide for that.
I love the word reconnect.
Because
I
we did
love
know.
that
Yep, we used to
because
know.
we used to know, we used to know, we used to be connected. That was all very beautifully said. Thank you so much, Mary, for sharing that. Because it's very also interesting that humans, when they're born, many people are born intersex, and it's a natural, normal thing. Now, it may just because someone that's why I say assigned female at birth or assigned male at birth, right? I'm not gonna get too into it, folks, but I can go on about it.
Mhm.
But there are many people that are born both or neither. Millions and millions of people, and it's been the norm. It's been natural. It used to be talked about.
Mhm.
Like it was a part of society. It was the norm. And so seeing that spectrum, we also have that in nature.
Oh, yes.
There are so many things um about ourselves that are also in nature. For example, water is a part of nature, and humans are mostly water.
Hmm. Yeah.
Folks, if you don't believe me, literally look it up. I know I was just as shocked too when I found out. I think it's like 70, 80% or something like that of we're mostly water. I was so shocked too when I first found out. So um I'm like, how does that work? I really don't care how it works, honestly, but I it helps, it helped me at least to further connect with nature
Hmm.
and see myself in nature. And then I see humanity in nature a lot. There's so many things about us that, we can learn from nature and that, like you said, reconnect because once upon a time we did. And I love how you said our body may know it, but sometimes our logically we forget,
Yeah.
right? But the body knows it. The body, like when we've been working so much and then the body is just like you need to rest, but we ignore it. Our body knows, our body remembers, the body keeps score.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that that's just very, very beautiful. Mary, you have got me speechless throughout the whole show in a good way, and I really do appreciate it. I don't even know what to say. I'm literally just gonna go back and re-listen to your show. I'm literally letting it marinate on me, right? Because something that it's been on my heart to do is, you know, in 2028, I'll finally be a doctor, right? I'll be finished with the PhD program and graduated. And I mean, honestly, my plan is to image. I'm just gonna let the universe and my higher self let life flow, but as of right now, a plan is to um, go live in nature.
That
I'm
would be
literally just
awesome.
just go live in nature. I mean, if I'm gonna be a professor, because that's also a plan, I can just do that virtually and teach class from. I don't know. I plan on getting like a RV camper or whatever those are called, and just drive around in multiple spots in nature and just set up my tent there by the RV. I feel like I don't know if I'm going to do that forever, but that's something that I want to do. I want to experience. And I think it'll just help me personally and spiritually just connect with nature. I want to connect with nature as deep as possible. I want to get as close to or even reach that point of connection that we used to have.
Yeah.
And if this is what I got to do that, then 1000% yes. Um, yeah. And it's what's really cool is like not only am I feeling this in my body, but also my mind, just because of what I've been learning.
Hmm.
I'm just like, society has so lied to me. Oh my gosh, society has lied to me.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. It hurt me differently, just because a lot of I've already talked about that in plenty episodes. I'll respect your time, Mary. I'll get on a soapbox. Um, but okay, so Mary, before we head out, can you tell us one more time? Um, do you have a website? I know you do.
I do have a
Um,
website.
and what is your podcast called, and where can we find your podcast
Okay.
and your book?
My book and my podcast. So my podcast is No Shrinking Violets, and you can find it on pretty much every streaming service, but you can also find it on my website, and that's where you can find info on my book. Of course, I also sell my book through Amazon, hardback, paperback, ebook, and it's maryrothwell.net. And if you want to go directly to my book, it's Nature Knows. If you want to go directly to my podcast, it's /podcast. But you can find everything at maryrothwell.net, and I am on Instagram and Facebook at Mary Rothwell Official.
Fabulous. And that will be in the episode description below, folks. So just click away. Alrighty, Mary. Well, I'm gonna close out the show. Stay on for a couple minutes. Folks, go hug a tree today. Even if it's just for a couple seconds. I know it may feel crazy or uncomfortable at first, but just go hug a tree today, because that was the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's the real norm. Go hug a tree. They're alive. They will appreciate it, and they love you unconditionally. Something that you can do, folks, you can hug a tree or touch a tree or look at a tree and say, "Thank you for loving me unconditionally." That's what I've been doing. I just been thanking the tree for loving me unconditionally. And if y'all know my story, y'all know that being loved unconditionally is something very important to me, because it's not something that I was used to. So it's very, very important to me, right? So, okay. Alrighty, folks. I will see y'all next episode for whatever that will be.